the more the left goes fucking insane and drives up hyper-awareness of the racial tensions, more and more people come to us.
It is not enough to merely have an American presence in space. We must have American dominance in space.
Whoa! Now this is the ass I'll eat.
Puerto Rico quietly revised its estimate of the death toll from Hurricane Maria's aftermath, from 64 to 1,427. The updated tally was disclosed in a draft report to Congress, requesting $139 billion in funds for recovery. Russia is threatening to stop selling rocket engines to the U.S. after the State Department sanctioned Moscow for nerve agent attacks in Britain. Moscow denies it was involved and calls the sanctions absurd and draconian. The Russian-made rocket engine powers one of the most reliable rockets in the U.S. space program, used to launch missile-warning satellites, resupply missions to the International Space Station, and the InSight Mars lander. 2 days after President Trump tweeted that the California wildfires are harder to fight because some of the state's water is protected by the Endangered Species Act, his Commerce Secretary told state agencies that firefighting takes priority over protecting animals. But California fire officials say they have enough water, and the Natural Resources Defense Council says the administration has created a smokescreen to weaken environmental protections. Kansas Secretary of State Chris Heimbach saw his lead in the Republican governor's primary shrink to just 91 votes after county officials found an error in his own office's tally. Heimbach was shown as beating the incumbent governor, Jeff Collier, in Thomas County, 466 to 422. But the county clerk's office results showed Collier actually had 522 votes, flipping the result. Election officials still have to count late mailed and provisional ballots.
Last year, white power marched through the streets of Charlottesville, without hoods and without shame.
This is the largest nationalist rally in over 2 decades. They've had to bring in leftists from around the entire country to try and stop us.
What just happened?
They maced me. Fuck! We're not nonviolent. We'll fucking kill these people if we have to.
Bodies laying on the ground right now.
The intensity of the weekend was only heightened by the president.
This egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides. On many sides.
They promised more marches, more hate.
We are stepping off the internet in a big way. You ain't seen nothing yet.
I think that a lot more people are going to die before we're done here, frankly.
But that's not what happened.
Not that I'm the tidiest guy on any given Friday, but like a year ago, I thought I was leaving for 2 weeks, and then the pipes burst, and I acquired a whole bunch of shit, so my place is more of a mess than usual. If you could not pay extra special attention to that, I'd appreciate it.
We will never give in. We will never back down. And we will never stop fighting for this land that we love.
Chris Cantwell spent most of the past year in Virginia, in jail or under GPS monitoring, after being charged with a felony for macing people at the Torch March. He pled guilty to a misdemeanor and was banished from the state for 5 years. He's been home for 2 weeks, podcasting from his apartment.
All right, on with it. Welcome to the Radical Agenda. It's a show about common sense extremism where we talk about...
Cantwell doesn't look like he did a year ago, and neither does the alt-right.
How did Charlottesville change the alt-right?
I think it tested a lot of people, and a lot of people were understandably scared by what happened, right? There's a lot of violence, a lot of chaos, a lot of lawfare. Guys are going to prison over this. And there wasn't a whole lot of agreement about how to go forward, and that, to put it charitably, left us fractured.
What happened to members of the alt-right who were in Charlottesville?
A lot of guys lost their jobs. lot of people got banned from social media. You know, I was permanently banned from Facebook. I was permanently banned from YouTube. All of us were banned from the major crowdfunding platforms, payment systems, PayPal, Stripe. There was a massive effort to make it like we didn't exist.
The alt-right wanted to show the world they were bold and unashamed of their racism. But they underestimated both the law and their opponents.
Hail Trump! Hail our people! Hail victory!
Richard Spencer had been a white nationalist for a decade. But when he hailed Trump, he became the face of the movement. He launched a college tour in late 2016. But after Charlottesville, his events were much harder to pull off.
Racist piece of shit!
At his last public speech at Michigan State in March, Spencer was marooned in a remote livestock building. Students were on spring break.
From the west coast to the east! Watch a Nazi in the teeth! Come! We're charging to 600 of you! Nazis go home! Nazis go home!
All his event really did was unite the opposition, liberal activists and Antifa, who have vowed not to be complacent like 1930s Germans who let Nazis take power. Most of Spencer's supporters couldn't get in because they were blocked by counter-protesters. The audience was largely reporters.
I think it's a success because I'm able to talk to everyone here. This is what I want. This is absolutely a success. Now,
White power!
The common factor to all of these violent acts is Antifa. Their whole little disgusting lives are based on deplatforming and being nasty and attacking people and so on. I'm not going to let the Antifa win because I'm smarter than the Antifa, which isn't saying much.
A few days later, he reconsidered and called off his college tour.
Antifa is winning to the extent that they are willing to go further than anyone else.
His vision of pushing white power deeper into the mainstream hit a wall. Spencer has left D.C. and moved back west.
Just a day in the park.
Matthew Heimbach was also a headliner at Charlottesville, and he also launched a college tour, starting at the University of Tennessee. He'd been a well-known white power activist since college and wanted to recruit Bernie bros by emphasizing the socialism in National Socialism.
We've got about 100 people registered between students on campus, locals, and folks who are meeting us here. So that's going to be the big thing, is to get everyone here and get everyone together.
But again, counter-protesters outnumbered them and made it uncomfortable to be a Nazi.
Nazi scum! Nazi scum! Nazi scum! Nazi scum!
Heimbach didn't have hundreds. Just a couple dozen Nazis from the parking lot. In March, Heimbach was arrested in a domestic violence incident when he got caught having an affair with his stepfather-in-law's wife, according to police. He pleaded not guilty, but he quit politics and the Traditionalist Worker Party dissolved. Others have quit more quietly. This guy was the face of racist rage. He's gone mainstream. We found him at CPAC, the biggest convention for the conservative movement.
Well, after Charlottesville, I kind of want to, get back a little bit of politics, but be in a much more tamed environment, obviously.
Most of the people still in the movement are people with nothing to lose. Cantwell lives alone. His only source of income is his racist content business. It's not reliable because he keeps getting booted by companies that process credit card payments. He says he's got over 10,000 listeners.
Callie, on a radical agenda, what's your agenda?
recent reports indicate that the Patriots and the commies are going to have a big rumble in Portland, Oregon.
I understand we're facing a very serious problem, guys, okay? And I don't want to, suggest that nobody should ever do anything about it, but don't fuck around before the goddamn midterms, okay? We do not want another Charlottesville 3 months before we go to the goddamn polls.
I'm looking at the upcoming elections and I'm saying to myself, it's a good thing for us to stay out of the spotlight.
And why is that?
Look at the election that happened in Virginia right after Charlottesville. didn't work out very well, right? But the elections happen, and then we can pop back up and screw around with the Overton window, but we should not be screwing around with elections.
Shifting the Overton window means shifting the political debate. So what was once forbidden becomes fringe, and what was fringe becomes mainstream.
Do you seek to influence the policy of the Republican Party?
I seek for better controlled people who sympathize with me to influence the policy of the Republican Party.
You mean keeps the Nazi stuff on the down low?
Even if I hadn't gotten branded the crying Nazi after Charlottesville, I'm just in no position to be involved in electoral politics. I just made too many mistakes.
Do you think the GOP is adopting any of the alt-right's ideas?
Not explicitly. It might be influencing it, though. We're influencing culture, and culture influences politics.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, let me put it this way. So I just feel like you're saying it both ways. Like,
so what I'm trying, here's what I'm trying to, here's
here's
the difficulty of it, okay? You're trying to tie the Republican Party to the alt-right because you think that'll be politically advantageous for you, and I think it's a disgusting tactic, and I'm trying not to help you. The fact of the matter is, the more the left goes fucking insane and drives up hyper-awareness of the racial tensions, more and more people come to us, and that's a very good thing. And that is going to start influencing politics if it hasn't already.
So can we talk about strategy and tactics?
Sure.
What do you think they should be for the alt-right?
As far as I'm concerned, the priorities are secure communications and ability to do business. So I'm trying very hard to promote the cryptocurrency adoption. And of course, it doesn't matter how secure your protocols are if you don't know who you're talking to. And so we need to start meeting each other in person and developing networks of trust.
Do you think there should be public events?
Yeah.
Like what?
Well, one of the things that I mused about recently was if we could get ourselves well enough organized and communicating securely enough that 100 Nazis could show up somewhere for an armed demonstration without anybody getting wise to it and then disappear just as mysteriously. I don't know exactly what would happen next, but that sounds like a really good goal.
A U.S. Space Force sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. But in Trump's America, it could soon be reality. The president first floated the idea in March, but even he didn't seem to take it seriously.
I said, maybe we need a new force. We'll call it the Space Force. And I was not really serious. And then I said, what a great idea. Maybe we'll have to do that.
Fast forward to June, and Trump actually directed the Pentagon to come up with a plan to make it happen. Days later, his supporters had a whole new chant.
Space Force.
And today, Vice President Pence made the Space Force sound like it could be a reality as soon as 2020.
As President Trump has said in his words, it is not enough to merely have an American presence in space. We must have American dominance in space, and so we will. The space environment has fundamentally changed in the last generation. What was once peaceful and uncontested is now crowded and adversarial.
So Pence painted a pretty dire picture. I spoke to Todd Harrison, a senior fellow at the Bipartisan Center for Strategic and International Studies, about whether those fears are real. What are our threats in space?
So it's not Star Wars so much, right? So there are, countries like China and Russia have demonstrated anti-satellite missiles. So basically you fire a missile up, hits a satellite, blows up in space. Most worrisome threats are the counter space weapons that you can't really see. There are things like lasers that can blind the sensors on a satellite. So if you could blind the imager on a spy satellite, the satellite's not of any use anymore. The other big threat that we see are jammers. So all of our satellites have radios on them. That's how we control them. That's how we get information from them. If you can jam those signals, then the satellite's no use to you. So we see this going on today. The challenge is that we don't have good protections against these kind of threats.
The Space Force plan Pence laid out today has 4 prongs. a U.S. Space Command, which would put everything the military does in space under one umbrella, a Space Operations Force, which Pence described as elite warfighters, the Space Development Agency to focus on new technologies, and an Assistant Secretary of Defense for Space to lead it all. Harrison said it'll be tough to convince the Pentagon to go through that kind of drastic reorganization.
It's going to upset the apple cart within the Pentagon because you're going to be taking people and budget away from the existing military services, especially the Air Force. The Air Force will lose the most from this.
The Air Force may not have to worry. Making the full Space Force happen will require a multi-billion-dollar budget and an act of Congress. And the Pentagon may do what it can to stop it.
There's a game that's often played in Washington is you just wait people out. If you don't like what your boss is telling you to do, wait them out. Because all the political types are temporary. And all of the, the military and the, career civil service jobs in government, they're permanent.
Tracey Crouch has one of the most unusual jobs in politics. She oversees NGOs and sports in the UK, but in January she got an additional assignment to serve as the first Minister of Loneliness.
British Prime Minister Theresa May has appointed a Minister for Loneliness. That really sounds like a Victorian euphemism for a gigolo.
Even worse, she's the only person in the world with that job. I mean, how sad? How sad is that?
I'm on mic. Nice to see you. You're right. Oh, it's the shitty weather.
A government job trying to manage an emotion might seem absurd. Crouch is aware of this perception and the scale of her task.
There's not one single cause, so it means there's not one single solution. That in itself makes it incredibly difficult. And loneliness is a subjective emotion. It's something that you can't necessarily identify particularly easy.
I've kind of struggled to find work. One thing led to another, depression. I live by myself anyway. A bit of loneliness creeping in.
The UK created this post to continue a national cross-party anti-loneliness programme launched by Jo Cox, the Member of Parliament who was murdered in 2016. Her commission called loneliness the giant evil of our time. A government report found that more than 9 million adults in the UK, or about 14%, are often or always lonely. But these photo opportunities in crowded community centres don't seem like an obvious remedy.
What does a delegated minister achieve?
Well, the lead minister really does make sure that they cajole all government departments into thinking about the issue of loneliness and the impact that policies might have that they're developing. But it will also include work that local authorities are doing and also business and volunteers and charitable organisations. This is about how we all work together in partnership to either prevent loneliness in the first place or help people into projects, into support services.
Crouch is reaching out to lawmakers from Canada to Sweden to compare notes on loneliness, and she's pulled civil servants from 12 different parts of government to study solutions. The UK plans to spend an extra $26 million over the next 2 years supporting NGOs with anti-loneliness programmes.
And what will success look like?
Well, we're never going to eradicate loneliness. But actually what I hope is that people will be able to identify that they are feeling acutely lonely and that they are therefore able to find the services that are there to support them. There isn't a one-size-fits-all to this issue.
I'm a bit of a diva, obviously. I think it helps me get through every day.
Toby keeps busy as a student, but she still feels lonely. She's felt that way since foster care, and she likes the idea of a new minister.
I was actually quite intrigued. I was genuinely intrigued. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I'm quite hopeful that something can change.
How do you think this country could benefit now from having a Minister for Loneliness?
Even if something was created, it needs to be known everywhere. So everybody's very clear that this is something that everybody deals with. You shouldn't be embarrassed about it because I think it's a national or global problem. How to manage it is what's important.
Crouch says she'll face down her critics with a strategy that will lead to results. Until she figures this out, another stack of paper might not bring much comfort to the millions of Britons living with loneliness.
We want to put together a long-term strategy. It will be a living and a breathing document. It will be something that will continue way beyond my tenure in this office. But actually, I think the symbolism is very important. My appointment being identified as something across the world, that is an important one to tackle, is an important symbol that this country has taken a lead on.
You might have heard my voice. I did not come to play with you, hoes. On Beyonce Formation. I came to slay, bitch. I want to know who motherfucking representing it here tonight. Or you may have heard it on Drake, Nice for What. Hold on. But this is the face that go with them both. Whoa, the party has started. This Big Freedia the Queen Diva, you best to believer. And I'm an international bounce superstar. Do it with no hands, hit the curve on that. Come on, big booty girls going twerk to this. And these are my vices. Oh my God, these bags are super nice. She is so cute. Like, I gotta pick up the phone, girl, yes. Even when I was young, I would have a briefcase going to school. And I was like, I need a purse. So I started getting the purses and just having fun with them. I know I don't need this bag, but I'ma still buy it anyway. The most I probably spent on a purse is close to about $5,000. The representation of me in a purse form, probably my own purse made out of a big penis. Whoa! Now this is the ass I'll eat. This is so smooth, look at that. Nice rim under here. I'm addicted to ice. I like certain type of ice. I like little small pebblets or really flaky ice like the ice from Starbucks. When I'm on a plane and I'm flying to Australia for 23 hours, I start, tweaking for more ice. Can I have a piece of this? Much needed. Ooh, you don't have to be gentle. Well, I go to massages so much because by me being on the stage all the time, it helps relax my body. People think it's easy and I just show up and I just pop up, but there's a whole lot going to it before I even hit that stage. What stresses me out the most? My boyfriend. No, don't stop it. Well, I'm Freddie by day because that's when I'm usually handling my business, but I'm definitely Freedia when I hit that stage. It gets cloudy, and I have those days where I don't want to be Freedia or Freddie. Well, a lot of people think that I am trans, but I'm not trans. I am a gay male with hair and nails. So if you say he or she, it doesn't matter. I know who I am. There was this one time when I messed up, not keeping up with the money that I was making and reporting it. I had to go to court and I became a felon. I was so embarrassed and I bounced back, getting my finances in order, hiring a business manager to handle all of that. And I also bounced back with the Beyonce song because it came out right after that. When Beyonce shot Formation, I was on tour. And when Drake wanted to get my sample to use for the song, the video was already shot. So a lot of people think that they didn't want me in it visually, but our schedules didn't line up. And it's okay for me. My voice being in it is a start. And that's important for me and for the LGBTQ community. Long as the check clear, I'm fine. You already know.
You guys worked here and lost your jobs in 2016. All of you were rehired.
Yes. Done a fine job, President Trump. Love you, man.
Do I think we should be in a trade war? No. Now, does it scare me? Yes.
He scares you.
Oh, he scares me all the time.
Your hope is that Donald Trump doesn't believe what he says.
I want to make sure you understand, to take Donald Trump literally is, I think, a huge mistake.
I don't know if I agree with that.
That's fair, and I don't know if I agree with me either.